Okay, y'all, I apologize. I have been late. It's been the first week of the semester, so I am all over the place. So let's get into season one, episode 10 of Love and Marriage Detroit. Brandon and mom are in therapy and they're trying to communicate with each other. And he's reflecting that where that he doesn't want to be this way with his own children, but at the same token I am going to say that this whole situation is a little on the garbage side. She's like, look, I am uh I can be, I could talk with you, I don't have to talk to you, it's not going to make my day any better. But she does want the problem that I'm going to say this again. I think it's important that we have to learn about our parents by, trying to understand them as adults, right? So we have to realize that they are not just mom and dad. They actually are adults with their own stories. They were raised away. They have their own coming to life moment. And I think that we take that for granted. And so I really want to, put that in the atmosphere that I, you know, you don't know how some of our parents have been raised to maybe not necessarily communicate in the same way, and you just have to make do. And so they may not be able to function in the same way as emotional health. I was raised where I didn't even hear about the level of quote unquote mental health until, now I don't want to say quote unquote, but the idea of having mental health is something that I think I was in my 30s. And when I was in junior high, I did have a person that I spoke with as a school therapist. I was on campus, and I would just go and talk with her during lunch just to chat. But it wasn't anything where people were writing anything down. Like I would come in, like it was just a thing that we like to do. We liked her, and so we just came and spoke with her. But it wasn't something to notion of having. And I had a friend in high school, well, my line sister. No, she's not my line sister, but my dean. She would talk to people. She would talk about going to therapy and stuff occasionally, but it wasn't a thing where people are like, I want to really focus on mental health. Um, so I think that there are different fads. We all are learned and raised in certain ways. And I know from myself, I was raised by a parent who told me that I could not, you know, it's important not to show weakness. And it makes a lot of sense from how she was raised. And so I think and so when I have a daughter now who really shows emotion, it is a little hard for me to um to understand that. And I went to therapy to try to understand and communicate, and I checked myself as to why that is. And I even talked to my husband like about the fact that a lot, when my therapist told me about how I said, so you're upset that your child is being a child. And it made me think about how adult I was being raised. Like that I was being raised to be independent of my mother, so that, and always under the mentality, like if something were to happen to her, what am I going to do? And that's the same philosophy that I'm not raising my daughter to that philosophy of, if something happens to me, what are you going to do? It's more like you do need to be independent, but don't think that you have to be completely alone in this. Because if something does happen to me, you still have your dad. If something happens to me, then you still have like other people, other adults to lean on. I did not feel that. And in fact, the person that she did want to designate as a person that I would lean on, is someone I absolutely would not have wanted to have been that person for me. It would have been somebody else. So I'm like, you should have consulted with me before you put him as my next of kin. Um, so it's um, a lot of that. So I think that this branding and mom thing is interesting, but I do think that branding, and it takes, well, I will say it does take maturity on an adult's part for you to get out of yourself and stop thinking about what your mom should do, a mom or dad should do. And yes, it's okay to be hurt by them, but I think it's also important to begin to start understanding who they are so that you can begin to understand them and also deal with your hurt. Two things can be happening at the same time. Christina, this whole influencer event, she's trying to connect influencers to have like this networking. And then she's like, yeah, and then we can let, show Kobe that we can work together. Ma'am, Kobe was trying to work with you. You didn't want to work with her. I just love this revision. I can't stand revisionist history. It's annoying. Like we were there. Or some of it at least. And so Latoya and Lakeita also attended. Christina makes this whole like, it's big of you to attend since we've had our issues. I'm gonna say I hate it when she said that because it did make me feel like um Kobe could have easily taken the bait and said something back to her. I appreciate that Kobe was like, I'm going to keep it as cool as possible because Christina has this way of saying things in a backhanded compliment, and you sit there and you're supposed to just kind of take it. And if you flip out and say something in response to her, then all of a sudden you look like the bad person because you're like, don't talk to me this way. That bothers me. It really absolutely does. But anywho, so it's nice that Kobe didn't take the bait. Latoya is talking about, okay, good. So maybe there's a possible collaboration with you guys. And then, of course, Christina's like, why is she adding her input? It's not really needed and putting it into a conversation. She's not involved. If you don't want her opinion and you don't want her to say anything, I have a hint. Do not include her in the conversation, meaning do not have her, okay? Do not have her. Do not have this conversation in front of her. Because what Latoya is trying to give, she's giving suggestions on some type of brand deals. And what I really think is if you would have said this a little differently, you would have been a little bit more friendly, a little bit more receptive. I think what she was trying to do is open up the door for Kobe and you to do some type of partnership on a deal to help promote her wine because she talks about the food and wine industry. So instead of you looking at it as a positive and you saying, that's right, you got a wine, we can promote your wine. Instead, you're like, why, instead you give this nice, nasty, I'm glad y'all here. And in the confessional, see, here you go, answering into because then I'm gonna let you know, like, I'm gonna watch this show and I'm gonna say, well, nope, I don't want her involved. I don't want to do business with her. I don't want to support her. So when she even makes this whole comment about in the reunion, I don't think that Latoya likes me. Okay. Um, Christina and Brandon, they're at Star Factory and talking about he has some heavy hitters, and then you have this Naya person. Let me pause you right here. And you're talking about practice. I need to understand what the Star Factory does. Is the Star Factory here to help promote these individuals to try to get them a deal? Like, I mean, I need to understand what we're doing here because I'm confused. Because if this is supposed to be promoting people, putting their vocals together and doing everything to get them to try to get a deal, to put them in front of people with the deal who can possibly give them deals, then what are you doing? When you're talking about how this is so important, it can make or break your company. You're talking about how practice is important. If you're saying practice is important, then let me explain something to you. Practice is not, this is the problem. I don't want to be around, and I have to admit that I do this even in my personal life and professional life. I do work with people who half-ass stuff. And what I do is I end up doing it myself because my name's on it. So I'm not going to put people on blast, but there's a couple of things that I'm working on right now, and I am carrying 90% of the load myself. It just is what it is. And part of the reason I'm doing it is because my name's on it. And I know that if I do these things successfully, more opportunities will open up. I cannot wait for somebody to do what is asked of them, which is the bare minimum. I can't because my name's going to be on it, and I want more opportunities for myself. I am a very ambitious person. And if I had 36 hours in a day, I mean, I know that I would be doing even more, but I don't have 36 hours in a day. And if I had an assistant, I definitely would be able to do more. Or if I had people who pulled their weight, I'd be doing more. I give all this to say, I don't understand what Brandon does all day because I cannot, in all honesty, try to think of promoting some folks and then you're going to talk about how practice is important. Your person is out of breath, and your Niger character to me is a half-ass artist, and I need people who are going to grind. And grinding means this chick should have been working out. Like if my business is my body and my vocal cords, I would be doing my practicing with my vocal coach on a daily basis. I would be working out a couple hours a day. I would be eating healthier. See, just being skinny is not it. You have to be able to work out so that you can build up your resistance because you are singing one song and you're out of breath. One song and you are struggling to breathe to get to the end of the song. That's a problem. That's not a performer. That's not somebody who's taking anything serious. And Brandon should be scheduling these workouts. Brandon should be scheduling these vocal coaches. Brandon should be scheduling rehearsal on a consistent basis, and she's not doing a 1-2 step and a hand in the head. The one thing you mean to tell me that this one woman, all she did for her showcase is this? That's terrible. Terrible. Just phone it in. was so I mean, if I was Christina, I would have turned around and been like, so what exactly do you do? What are you doing? And what exactly talking about she did better at the showcase? Define better. I couldn't stand it. I don't understand their relationship. Russell's talking about the gym didn't work out. They're going for a walk. Kobe wants therapy, and Russell feels vindicated because he's the one who originally thought that therapy was a good idea. I listened to Russell's um, reality with the King interview, and he's what does he think? He was talking about how he was a bachelor living on his own, having these nice cars, this penthouse, and he had to get adjusted to communicating because he wasn't the best communicator because he was used to doing things on his own and not open. So I sort of kind of understand that it's hard to merge your life, and I get and I understand that completely. I do think they've only been married for 3 years. I think people don't give that sense of credit to being married for because they're a very young couple when it comes to them on the stage. They've been married the least amount of years. Latoya and Anthony, they're at the house. I think it's really interesting watching her being involved with the physical nature of the relationship between, I mean, her being involved with her kids' sports and she's, working them out, looking at how they move. I appreciated that. She's Latoya and Anthony were talking, um, and Anthony still literally brings up Atlanta. Boy, this boy is never gonna let this live, let this die, and I'm annoyed hearing it. I can only imagine how his wife feels. If I'm the viewer in 10 episodes, every single episode you mention Atlanta, do you know at one point, and you can tell, at one point I would literally curse him out. If you bring up Atlanta one more time, I'm going to hit you. And I don't even want to hit anybody. And Latoya clearly is getting annoyed by him bringing up Atlanta one too many times. And I do think that she eventually is going to snap on this boy. Um, and she's like, look, you need to state what you need. What do you need from me? And state it. And then he makes a joke, and I'm just like, whatever. Um, Christina, we're at the showcase. Christina is like this, makes it a talk about how the showcase and how all this other talent. She's like, they're not Star Factory talent. And I was just like, I know that you're trying to throw a dig, but sweetie, that's not a dig because we're looking at the quality of your folks, and it ain't a dig. Okay, so Brandon feels that the fate of this Star Factory is based on the showcase. If that's the case, you would have took this more seriously. Lyrique comes and Brandon is clearly upset of his presence. You know what I don't understand? Brandon, you need to be a more secure individual. Because if you were a very secure individual in your own skin, then you wouldn't care that Lyrique would be coming to this showcase. And then the fact that you see him talking to Christina and you walk right up on him, he's going to poach my people, and then he's going to go ahead and poach my wife. And I'm going to stand 10 toes down. Christina, if I knew that my husband had a problem with someone, there is zero possibility that I am going to even entertain, even if on a friendly basis. I would never, ever, 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 ever entertain doing business with somebody that my husband has a problem with. And somebody he wants to do a song or an album, and she's flirting with him. And then continues to flirt even when Brandon was there. So I'm going to believe what Bondi Blue said, that she's doing this intentionally to get back at um, Brandon. I'm going to believe it because there's no way that this would be acceptable, and there's no way that I would do this, and then there's no way that I would intention because well, it would be such a massive argument in my house if I was to do what he did. And um yeah, I mean, it would be a massive, and then like there'd be some serious consequences, and I just wouldn't even do that. But teach his own. Then she wants to try to squash the beef with Lyrique and Brandon. Okay. I don't I Brandon feels I don't even have words to that. I just am so annoyed with the whole situation. And I feel like if I not only am I so annoyed because I'm more annoyed even more so because Anthony is blamed to be making digs at Brandon. How can you blame Anthony for making digs at Brandon with Lyrique if you don't sit here and have this whole sit down and then try to get them together to work it out? So like how is Anthony then making digs and trying to undermine you when your own wife is open to it, when your own wife is doing something like this, but the very man that you claim to have such a problem with? Like, I don't understand. Two plus two is not equaling up to four in this. Brandon feels that he's still getting these arrows from Anthony. I'm I I think Brandon should have a sit down with himself and figure out why is he so insecure and how he can go and be okay with being confident in his own skin because he's clearly intimidated by grown men. And why are you so intimidated? You should not be this intimidated by other grown men in the building. But on that note, I'm done and and I will speak with you soon. Bye.